Bureau. He had worked as a senior English interpreter also for Deng Xiaoping and other Chinese leaders since during the mid-1980s, giving him important insights into decision making and important topic. He has traveled over 100 countries and he is an author of many books, to which our Thai are fortunate to have one book translated in Thai language named China Now. Without further ado, let me give the stage to Professor Zhang Weiwei to deliver his speech and his insight on the topic that we all look forward to today. Thank you so much, Professor. The stage is yours.
And excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I should try to pronounce your name, Dr. Charan Song Suk. Thank you very much. And thank you, Professor Benjamin, for your kind introduction. And I will give you a short lecture, an overall survey of the Chinese model of development. And it's indeed the research findings of my own work. And it does not represent views of Chinese government or any other institution, but it's indeed my view. I'm one of the few scholars who has long been discussing China model 20 years back in the global arena. And I will try to highlight to what extent and why China has succeeded so far, and what will be the prospect of Chinese model and its implication for the international community. And as just now, sorry. Okay, yeah. Yeah. So as we have referred to just now by the moderator, we'll have a Q&A. Please raise any questions you have on the China model or whatever. I try my best to answer. I will try to make sure that we have enough time for Q&A. I can even cut a bit short of my lecture in order to answer questions. So I have about 1 hour, perhaps 45 minutes, and then we could have Q&A. Okay. That's the title of my lecture. Now, 4 years ago, there was a Quora question raised on why no color revolution in China. Why don't the educated Chinese revolt against communist rule and bring about democracy in China? And then a Chinese student from Shanghai gave a short reply, that's my hometown in 1990 and in 2010, and explains everything. You know, on this, I have to tell you one short anecdote, because Thailand is the first country I visited, foreign country. Back in 1982, I spent over 1 week in Bangkok working for ESCAP as an interpreter. Yeah. And it's the first time I saw supermarket. The first time I saw highways. The first time I saw shops opening till 9 p.m., still opening. All these were entirely not available in China at that time. Yeah. But as you all know, Chinese are good learners. We try to learn from Thailand, from Malaysia, from Singapore, because Deng Xiaoping visited all these countries in 1978 before his decision to usher in larger scale reforms and opening up, especially Singapore. when Deng Xiaoping was very young, at the age of 16, he went to France to study, but had a short stopover in Singapore. Uh, Obviously, at that time, Singapore was slightly better than a fishing village in 1920. Yeah. But when he was there again in 1978, he saw a thriving financial center. Then he came back to China. He said that we should learn from Singapore. But he also said we should also try to do better in certain areas. So I met the famous Singaporean scholar Kishore Mahbubani, former Singaporean ambassador to the United Nations. And when I told him this anecdote, he said, that's why the West is afraid of China. Even you are way behind, you try to learn from others. We began to learn from others, you're already thinking, how can we go beyond that model? In the end, we have a China model. So that's how things moved out. You look at the statistics, roughly for 4 decades, China has maintained a growth rate of roughly 9% a year, and the annual trade growth close to 15%. Yeah. And now China has become the largest trading partner. I'm very glad that China is Thailand's largest trading partner for exactly 10 years. By the end of this year, it will be 11 years. China now is also the largest investor in Thailand. So all this is exciting. And here, I want to share with you the GDP. China became the largest economy in terms of purchasing power parity by 2014. So exactly, China became the largest economy for already 1 decade by this time. Yeah. Yet interestingly, this particular moment of history, the United States is deeply concerned. They don't want to see China as a larger economy than the United States. The United States will become number two. That will be psychologically unacceptable. So United States is readjusting its GDP by all kinds of ways and means, and we think it's a bit amazing. And everything now is included, even housework, whatever, house chore, including GDP, etc. And yet, for me, PPP, purchasing power parity, is much more reliable. I've been to over 100 countries. I think this PPP calculation is more realistic. I think the United States is deeply concerned because by purchasing power parity, China is the largest economy for already 1 decade. Today, how much larger China economy is than the United States? I said, we give this task to CIA. Hopefully they will find the difference between China economy and the United States economy. And China has eradicated completely extreme poverty. And this is by no means easy. 770 million people out of extreme poverty. As a result, China created the world's largest middle class, 400 million. It's real middle class. They have properties and decent income. When they go to Europe, they're also middle class. I spent over 20 years in Europe. I know, yeah. And this is globally transformative. Yeah. I'm thinking of perhaps this size of middle class will double 10 years from now. So it will become 800 million, something like that. And this poverty reduction is not superficial, very strict criteria. It's called the 2不愁, no worry about food, no worry about clothing, and 3保障, 3 guarantees, guarantee for housing, guarantee for medical insurance, guarantee for compulsory education. So 2不愁, 2 no worries, 3 guarantees. And this is the how. And also, China has also become the largest export of tourists. So by the year 2019, which means 1 year before the COVID, China exported 150 million visits to foreign countries. I'm also I've also learned that at the peak of Sino-Thai relations, the maximum number of tourists for Chinese tourists to Thailand was 10 million a year. That's the peak. And then with COVID, it went down sharply. This year, I met Chinese ambassador. He said probably we can reach 8 million for Thailand. So it's I would say, a forceful recovery. Hopefully, it will be realized. And interestingly, average life expectancy in China now is already higher than United States, 2 years higher. In case of China, 78.2 years. In case of United States, 76.1. And when this largely caused by the different approach to COVID. Yeah. And China has done much, much, much better than United States, much less human casualty. And furthermore, if you compare Shanghai and New York, Shanghai's life expectancy is 5 years longer than New York. Shanghai is 84. New York is 79. Yeah. So this is a larger picture of China's progress. And I often describe China's modernization as we have achieved what we call the 4 industrial revolutions in one stroke. Every 10 years, one industrial revolution. For historical reasons, China missed first industrial revolution and second industrial revolution. But beginning from 1970s, early 80s, China tried very hard to catch up. So they made up for the past lessons one by one. So the first revolution represented by textile industry, I refer to the European example. UK was the largest trader and producer of textiles, representing the first industrial revolution. China became the largest trader and producer in textiles by the year 1995. And then the second industrial revolution was marked by power industry and other manufacturing industries in Europe and United States. So China, by the year 2010, became the world's largest producer of electricities. And then manufacturing sector expands and surpassing United States, surpassing US, Germany, Japan combined, and surpassing G7 combined, and now surpassing the Western countries combined. So this is China is now the largest manufacturing, industrial and trading nation in the world. Most comprehensive sets of industries across the country. And then with the third industrial revolution, which is marked by telecommunications, and we all use smartphones. So in the time of 2G and 3G, China had very little influence globally. But beginning from 4G, China became competitor, 50-50 with the West. By the time of 5G, Huawei represents the leader in the world. Today, China's 5G stations represents 70% of the global total. And at least 20 times that of United States, 5G stations. In other words, you can use mobile phones to watch videos wherever in China, from Tibet, high mountains there, to deserts. If there is a village, there is a Wi-Fi, whatever networks. So better than the suburbs of New York. This is something in our experience. And then the fourth industrial revolution is still going on with big data, AI, quantum technologies, etc. China is one leader. Perhaps China and United States are the only two countries in the first camp, premier camp of the fourth industrial revolution, with tremendous global implications. And as a student of international politics, we discuss what we call the center peripheral global order. In other words, the world is governed by a kind of unfair system. The West is also called the center. Global South is called the periphery. The center has US dollars, has militarized war machines, has all kinds of rules, so-called rules-based order, and international organizations, institutions in favor of the West. And most members of Global South remain poor despite so many decades of development, because that particular peripheral center relationship is always there, unfair. Yeah. And the China success in realizing four industrial revolutions means China has successfully broken through that system, that order. China itself became an independent pole, a center, simultaneously the largest trading partner, technology partner, and financial resource partner with the rich countries and with the global south. And China is now the only country capable of providing goods, services, experiences from all the four industrial revolutions. So some people say whether Thailand should pick side, United States or China. I said, I don't want to intervene in Thai politics. It's very complicated. Yet, you ask a simple question: what the United States can offer and what China can offer? I said, we can offer all the goods, services from all these industrial revolutions. The United States can offer weapons, very expensive, and the quality not that good. And so this is transformative and changing. Same with the philosophy. As we all know, China launched 11 years ago its BRI, Belt and Road Initiative, under the important principle of discussing together, building together, and benefiting together. This is also a revolutionary approach. In other words, we must achieve win-win for all the parties involved, rather than zero-sum game. You win, we lose. We win, you lose. We want to change that to overcome the defects of the peripheral center global order. And so I think all these have already brought a lot of changes in the global arena. Behind this is very important fact that the rise of China is by no means the rise of an ordinary country, but the rise of an extraordinary country that is a civilizational state, which means an age-old, the world's longest continuous civilization with a super large modern state. And I summarize this civilizational state with four main features: super large population, super vast territory, super long traditions, and super rich culture. And each of these super is a blend between old and the new. Yeah. So that's indeed exciting for Chinese, exciting also for many people from outside China. Why? If you look at the population, yes, China has always been the most populous nation. And this is a historical inheritance we have. Yet, this population has received good education, full literacy. And every year, China produces more scientists, engineers than the Western countries combined. This is what we call the engineers bonus or scientists bonus. Why China became a center of innovation, center of creativity, and center of manufacturing, whatever, had to do with this bonus for engineers, for scientists. Same with the vast territory. Yes, this vast territory, which means you can fly for 5-6 hours. You're still within China. You still eat Chinese food, listen to Chinese music, speak Chinese language. I am for the Chinese language, so important now. And yet, it's also modern because this is connected by the world's best highways, high-speed trains, what we call the 八纵八横, 8 horizontal lines, 8 vertical lines. And virtually all these high-speed trains reach all the cities in China. And also digital infrastructure, that's important. I have mentioned this, even in Tibet, in Xinjiang, in far remote areas, you have Wi-Fi's. And by the way, we just came back from France. We made a visit to Paris to have a think tank dialogue before Xi Jinping's visit to France. And my team with experts in shooting camera, shooting films, and when they arrived in Paris, they found this 4G Wi-Fi system was almost broken, very poor. And they found that Bangkok is much better than Paris. And I remember, when United States began its trade war, tech war against Huawei, France obeyed the American order and canceled the contract with Huawei and removed 3,000 5G stations installed by Huawei. Now, Paris will host the Olympic Games. All of a sudden, they realize they need Huawei, they need 5Gs. Otherwise, there's no way for international transmission of all the signals. So they came to Huawei for help. And Huawei said, okay, fine, but pay everything once for 1 year service. Yeah. And after 1 year, we remove all the equipment. So that's the way how we deal with the Western arrogance. You have to be more arrogant than them. Otherwise, they bully you. Okay, same with traditions. As a student of political science, China has many long political traditions. For instance, in the Western countries or wherever which practice Western political model, politics is about election. Political parties rivalry with each other. But the Chinese tradition, political tradition, is different. It's selection. This is from the old Keju system of Sui dynasty about 1,500 years ago. A kind of civil servant examinations, and only the best can become prime minister. So carried on this tradition, and with reform and became more modern. So Chinese system is what I call selection plus election. Selection is the first. Meritocracy. You must be competent. You must have worked 3 times at least as the #1 of Chinese province, which means literally you have governed, administered 100 million people before you came to this position in the top leadership. Yeah. See, member of the Standing Committee of Political Bureau, top 7. Yeah. So I will always say, arguably the Chinese leadership is among the most competent in the world. Yeah, given their rich experience in governing all kinds of local affairs. And same with super rich culture. If you talk about political culture, and there is one dimension of political culture in China, that is what we call the 民本主义, people-centered or people's livelihood focused. In other words, whatever you do, economic policy, political policy, social policy, it cannot be talk for the sake of talk, or it has to be, you have to deliver. You have to produce tangible things for ordinary people, for their livelihood. So this is very much the Confucius idea of people's livelihood first. So these are, both old and new, and they are very much alive in today's China. Uh, 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 Now, as a result, this Chinese model is like a specter haunting the West. And the West is very much afraid of this model. To such extent, if you look at the Western mainstream media, whether BBC, CNN, New York Times, full of negative articles about China. And China's economy is always in crisis. And China is always on the bank of bankruptcy. For us, we think it's sheer rubbish. I said, over the past 4 decades, you have pessimists about China and optimists about China. It turned out that optimists are always right, pessimists always wrong. And I'll explain to you in detail if we got time. Now, key features of the China model. First, people-centered, not voters-centered. This is very important because under the Western model, it's more about voters-centered. And voter-centered means, let me give you an example. When Sino-US trade war broke out, that's imposed by United States on China. They levy heavy tariff on the Chinese produce. And for one thing, they launched the war and tariff against Chinese steel products. Steel. We were amazed because we know steel is a median or intermediary product. It will affect all lines of industries. Why this da 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 over there? Always some signal, yeah. Could you stop it? Yeah. Yeah. And in the end, we find that indeed it's negative for United States, for the whole country. Yet it is positive for the Rust Belt region, for Donald Trump. Yeah. So he cared about his core voters. So then he got these core voters vote for him, will win the election. So he dared to levy tariff on Chinese produce. But in the case of China, a policy must serve the vast majority of the population. So most Chinese are the beneficiaries of China's progress. So this is great. Second is Chinese Communist Party is what I call holistic interest party, which represents the whole people. Why so? Because it's a tradition, it's part of the civilizational state's tradition. China was first unified in 221 BC by Emperor Qing. From then on, China was ruled and governed by a unified ruling entity. This is the CPC's Communist Party's tradition is same. It's followed this unified ruling entity and then had this tradition further developed. This Northwestern model, yeah. The Western is very critical of so-called one-party rule. I said, our party and your parties are totally different. Our party is not a party. It is a unified ruling entity. Otherwise, the country is disintegrated overnight. Because China is the size of 100 European countries, average European countries combined. In Europe, each nation, each country is in average 14 million people. China is 1.4 billion people, 100. Thailand has a population of 67 million, which is the size of typical Chinese middle-sized province. So China has 31 provinces, I mean, at least 35 islands. For this size, if you have one person, one vote, and multi-party system, it's suicidal. Yeah. The country will be forever in mess. No way to do that. Even Asian emperors know that. And ordinary people also know that. So you need to have a unified ruling entity. I told my European friends, if Roman Empire could continue united till today, let's say EU today is the continuation of Roman Empire. EU would not dare to have one person, one vote or multi-party system. If you have that, you will disintegrate overnight. Yeah. The size matters. It's not a small country. It's 1/4 or 1/5 of human beings, mankind. China's population is larger than all the Western countries combined. Yeah. So this is different. Then when you have holistic interest party, you also have holistic interest for everything. I'll come to that. Selection plus election to produce leaders, not simply election. And this is very important. I mentioned this, I discussed already. And then practice-based reasoning. The governing philosophy for the past 4 decades has always been Deng Xiaoping's slogan, seeking truth from facts, not from dogmas. Whether dogmas from the West, like market is great for everything, or dogma from the East, central planning is the best for everything. No, we think both have their merits and defects. So we have to continue to experiment and try to find our own way. And then we practice consultative democracy in both high politics and low politics. In high politics, a good example is how we produce 5-year plans. Now we all know China is the leader in electric vehicles, EV cars. This EV success or EV revolution is the result of 4 5-year plans, 20 years. Consistent, no change, long-term commitment. If there any change, it's a small readjustment in the process. Every 5-year plan has some readjustments. So in the end, you produce these long-term results. Otherwise, it's inconceivable. Yeah. And some people say, yes, you have a state intervention, industrial policies from the state, yet the state could make mistakes. You could pick the wrong industry, wrong sector to promote, and then in the end become very wasteful. Yet China is a civilizational state. The size of China allows China to experiment different approaches. For instance, for electric cars, today it's a lithium battery approach. But in the process, over the past 20 years, we not only have lithium battery, we also have hydrogen powered vehicles. We also have other options, 4 or 5 approaches. They were simultaneously operating in different parts of China. In the end, through fierce market competition, lithium battery came out top. Yeah. Hydrogen is still used for large buses. Yeah. Coaches. Yeah. But the consumer vehicles are now predominantly lithium battery. So this is the way, given this size, you can afford internal competition and let the best came out. It does not mean the government is very clever. We can choose right lithium battery from day one and become successful. No, it's always many options in competition. And in the end, the best came out. And each 5-year plan is the result of hundreds rounds of consultations within the party, outside the party, at different levels of Chinese state structure, central government, local governments, and between different think tanks and experts. So it's a typical case of good decision making. And then we have, as here many are in the field of business, you want to follow China's economic development. My advice is you follow at least 3 things. Number one is the 5-year planning. It's making and the end result, the 5-year plan. Number two, every March, there is what we call the 2 sessions, the session of People's Congress and the session of Political Consultative Conference. It's almost like in the West country, one is Congress, the other is Senator. Yeah. And in the March 2 sessions, deputies discuss the report of the government work. This report is very substantial. If you compare the report of Chinese government work with the State of Union address of the United States, you will see the quality of democracy. One is about delivering tangible things to the people. Each line or every 2 lines, you see slight change of words, it will affect tens of millions lives. Yeah. And the US State of Union speech is a campaign rhetoric. Yeah. You read it and throw it away. Yeah. But in the case of Chinese report, you do this accordingly. And then every November or December, toward the end of year, there is a party's conference on economic work. Which will summarize this particular year's work and then look into next year. So 5-year plan, and then twice every year, leaders will check the performance for that year and for next year. So this already very much institutionalized. Yeah, you'll get a lot of information if you read all this. And they are so open and transparent, but the Western media refuse to do that. I think they're very lazy. They have labels, this authoritarian government, this is da, 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 da. Stupid, very stupid. I say we live in darkness. We don't care about your approach. Your reports on China laughable. To be honest, I read so many reporters. I know many of them. Arrogance, and then they are being penalized. And constant experimentation. In other words, whatever a new policy is produced, we first have a pilot projects, test it, and then if it achieves good results, we have it extended. If not good, we can close it down. The good example is the whole reform started with the Shenzhen Special Economic Zone as an experiment. We experiment many things, And then a mixed economy, that's important. I mentioned this already. The state sector and private sector, their roles are ideally complementary. Sometimes there are problems between them, but the central government, the CPC Central Committee, it tries to balance both and try to make sure the state sector and private sector complement each other. So I mentioned just now, state sector responds for digital infrastructure, and private sector, Jack Ma, whatever, responds for providing whatever best services possible for the Chinese public. And that balance between three powers, that's something, very important for the Chinese model. The model ensures there is a political, social, no, I should put this way, there are political power, social power, and capital power. The CPC's role is to make sure these three powers will achieve a kind of balance in favor of the vast majority of the population. This is why China is a socialist country. If you ask me to using one sentence to describe the difference between Chinese political system and American political system, very simple. The Chinese one, in China, the richest 100 individuals had no chance whatsoever to dictate the political bureau of the Communist Party of China. But United States, I'm sorry, the richest 50 can dictate the White House. It's a government for the rich, by the rich, of the rich. So that's key difference. And as you may know, there is a famous Western scholar, Japanese origin but American scholar called Fukuyama. He is the author of the end of history thesis. In other words, economic, political models in the world will all end up in the Western political economic model. Democracy and multi-party system and free running market economy. So by then means the end of history. The Western model represents the end of history. No more progress. As the world becomes very boring after that. So he came to China in 2011 when Arab Spring occurred. Egyptian leader Mubarak uh, uh, um, was crumbling. And he said that China may also experience Arab Spring, the Chinese way. Yeah. I said no chance. We had a debate. And I made a prediction. I said Arab Spring will become Arab Winter. Yeah, my prediction turned out to be right. Yeah. And then he said that China needs political reform. I said that both China and United States need political reform. Yet, I think United States need more political reform because your system is a product of pre-industrial era for agricultural society, to be honest. At that time, United States was a small country of several million people. That kind of situation shaped your constitution. It's way behind the 21st century. I made another prediction. At that time, the poorest low-rating leader was George W. Bush. I said, if you do not carry out substantial reforms, you may produce a leader worse off than George W. Bush. It turned out to be true for many people. And then, I also went to UK and had debated with the UK political scientists. Again, same question. I said, UK needs more political reform than China. If you have this referendum one after another, I'm sorry, I will make another prediction. I said, Great Britain will become Little Britain soon. It's on its way to become Little Britain. Huh? And I said, I have a very low opinion for the future of the Western political model. I said this openly for 20 years. I said the major problem is you cannot cope with what I call low-minded populism. And I told him bluntly in the year 2011, 13 years ago. At that time, he was very confident. He said, no, we are a mature democracy. We have freedom of speech, freedom of the press. I said, you're a bit simple and naive. And you will pay a lot of price for your naivety. Yeah, because politics is life and death. Yeah. If you have a leader who is an idiot, your country will follow the path of an idiot. Yeah, this is unfortunate. And then I said, it's not the end of history, it's the end of the end of history. Yeah. So this is what we say and we discussed at that time. And I began to say Chinese model is better than American model back in 2006. At that time, I traveled to over 106 countries. I began to write small pieces, opinion articles for New York Times and other journals. And this one is the allure of the Chinese model, the appeal of the Chinese model. And I said, over the past 25 years, I've traveled to more than 100 countries, most of them developing ones, including 18 in Africa. I concluded, in terms of eradicating poverty and helping the poor and the marginalized, Chinese model, however imperfect, has worked far more effectively than what can be called the American model. Yeah. At that time, New York Times was still very much assured of its American superiority. So it said, no problem, we can publish an article, a sign of freedom of speech. But now, the New York Times is very cautious. They will not publish this kind of politically incorrect articles. I said, I will remember Chairman Deng Xiaoping telling the visiting president of Ghana, Jerry Rawlings, in September 1985, when I was his interpreter. Deng Xiaoping said, please don't copy our model. If there is any experience on our part, it's to formulate policies in the light of one's own national conditions, find your own way. And then I said, perhaps attitude makes all the differences. China is viewed by others as modest, America as arrogant. China leads by example, America by lectures and sanctions, if not missiles, which is still case today. United States only knows three things: lectures, sanctions, and missiles. Yeah. So I told the Americans, I said, no, if you lecture us, we will lecture back. If you sanction us, we'll sanction back. You want to throw missiles, we'll throw back. So that's why China's rise has caused a headache for the United States, because we can do all this. Now, on the whole, the Chinese model or Chinese socialist model is successful. And I make 6 major points here. First, China has become the world's largest economy now. Or we can be more modest. We'll say China will become the largest economy soon, perhaps in 5 years. The first, it's already largest economy by purchasing power parity. But by US dollar dominated GDP, it will take another 5 years. If the United States stop changing its GDP methodology, a middle class twice US population in a decade, I'm thinking it's quite possible. And medical insurance, pension for all, that has been achieved. Yeah. And China has become the world the leader in alternative energies. So I think, China, ASEAN, and China, Thailand are very matched in this regard. Because look at the overall plan for Thai economy by the Thai government. It focuses on digital economy, green economy, and renewable energies. All these sectors, China beats other countries and beats the West. And China is at the forefrontier of the fourth industrial revolution. I'll give many examples. And number 6, it will have a global impact. The world order is becoming more vertical, in which the West is above the rest in terms of power, hard power, soft power, in terms of wealth, in terms of ideas, to a more horizontal order in which the West and the rest are on a par with each other in terms of wealth, power, and ideas. So this is global transformative. And then from increasingly unipolarity to multipolarity, which is already happening every day. Yeah. Is the China model an alternative to the Western model? My answer is both yes and no. Now, First, no. Different from the West, China has no messianic tradition, no evangelical tradition to convert others. It does not seek to impose its model on others. China never does that. Second, China has a tradition with a high degree of political independence that few countries can match. Yeah, China can say no to the United States. We say no all the time, every year, every month, every day. And then China has a long history of a strong and neutral state, respected by the ordinary people. The central government always had very high reputation. And then yes, the essence of the China model, a country should endeavor to find its own ways and means for development and prosperity in light of its own national conditions. This is, I think, universal truth. And second, many of Chinese ideas and practices may inspire other countries. For instance, in the BRI, Belt and Road Initiative, this idea of industrial zones, economic zones are very popular. Yeah. And secondly, this plan or planning is also well received. It could be a plan for a city, plan for a particular set of industry, a plan for a country. This is also popular among BI participants. And then I said that the Chinese model may usher in a paradigm shift from what's called democracy versus autocracy to good governance versus bad governance. We hope that will be the new paradigm in the years to come. And let me quote Mr. Hamid Karzai. He said, he was a former president of Afghanistan. He said, if we had a choice to begin again in Afghanistan, we would certainly opt for the Chinese model of development. It's quick, decisive, and result-oriented. It brings net results to all. So that's a great model. Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you. So now we have enough time for Q&A. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Jiang Weiwei. Next, I would like to welcome Mr. Bentarong on the stage to run this session. If anyone have any question, please ask the speaker right now.
Thank you, MC. So thank you, Professor Jiang Weiwei. Let me open the floor for questions for the audience in the room. And do we have someone monitor online as well? Yes. So if you have online, feel free to type in your questions and the team would pick that up and pass to me. I actually have received some questions to begin with, and let's warm up, let me say. Professor Jiang, what are the key driving factors to make China economic back to normal level? Given that currently Chinese economy slowed down a little bit, how do we bring that back to the pace it once was?
Yeah, this is an interesting question. Obviously, influenced by the Western media's coverage of China. In fact, China's economic growth rate last year for the year 2023 was 5.2%, which means China has contributed to the global economy's growth more than 30%. In other words, if last year there was an increased $100 in the global economy, $30 at least came from the Chinese economy. So China is the leader, driving force for the global development. And or put it another way, China's contribution to the global economic growth is larger than the G7 combined. So you can always say from an abstract angle, you can do this better here and there. I don't challenge that position. We'll have to have a realistic assessment. Then if you look at all the key indicators in China economy, in terms of consumption power, in terms of the level of consumption, in terms of the number of tourists, in terms of the air flights and the shipping, whatever tonnage, China has all moved beyond the 2019 level, beyond surpassed the level before the COVID. So it's well in the process of development. Furthermore, China has new pillars of growth. If you look at the Huawei representing the semiconductor industries, and BYD representing the EV vehicles, battery, etc. And then BI representing the external trade and economic cooperation. This is how we view Chinese economy from the Chinese model's perspective. We say if we look at we're very different from the United States. US, if we just want to have economic growth rate, we can do this easily. But we want to have a particular type of economic growth rate. It must be high quality economy. It must be economy higher in value chain, higher in level of technological sophistication. Yeah. So all this, all of a sudden, not long ago in Beijing held the global auto show, and all of a sudden, European companies realized their traditional cars, few cars, have no market in China anymore. People don't visit Mercedes-Benz or BMW. They embrace BYD, Huawei, and other cars. Because I said it's qualitatively different. It's almost like in the past, we remember we take pictures by using films. At that time, it was the competition between Fuji and Kodak. Then it was replaced not by another film company, but by digital technology. So this one high level, one dimension much higher, is a game changer and transformative. China is moving in that direction. Yeah. We compare the central government, Xi Jinping compare Chinese economy to make the transition to higher quality and high-end products, and China making steady and reliable progress. So that means things are moving in the right direction. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Professor Zhang. Let me just look to the floor in case there is a hand up. Do you have a microphone to? There's a question here.
So thank you very much, Professor Zhang, for a good talk and very awesome suggestion. So my question is regarding that you mentioned that China economy going very fast right now. And my question is how China government build up many like pilot-free test zone, economy and special economy corridor around the country. So how like the government have like a policy to build up all of that one. And another thing is, as you mentioned that the China modernization, you focus on people-centric and the people-center, and how you build up the education ecosystem sandbox in China for the people-centric, and for these people, how you link these people, human capital to the economic in China. And another thing is, do you have any suggestion for Thailand economic corridor, how we can like build up the success economic corridor in our country? Thank you.
Well, concerning this pilot projects and how to build economic corridors, In the case of China, the principle is what we should do is to, based on the existing conditions, we try to add up all kinds of advantages so that will produce what we call the 1+1 more than 2, this kind of effect. For instance, I'm from Shanghai, and around Shanghai we have Zhejiang province, Jiangsu province, Anhui province. So these 3 provinces plus Shanghai constitute what we call the economic zone, Yangtze River Delta. Today, this Yangtze River Delta is already a larger economy than Japan or Germany. By official exchange rate, it's already bigger than Germany or Japan. In other words, itself is number 3 and number 4 in the global economy. And the idea is, in the first place, you make sure the infrastructure. So wherever from Shanghai to any cities of this particular Yangtze River Delta, it's within 1 hour and a half. China's vast country, 1 hour and a half. And then between these cities, what we call the intercity travel is very convenient, very convenient. The idea to have this Yangtze River Delta integration is to make sure that, I'll give you an example, it's better explained this way. For instance, we talk about ecological civilization to protect the environment. In the past, a province is like a country, I control the air and water, river, lake in this province. But as you know, if you want to protect environment, they are moving and fleeting, So you have to have a coordination. Yeah. For instance, a huge lake called the Taihu, which affects 3 provinces, or 2 provinces. So you need to have a coordination. And the coordination, for you want to make sure this river and its water is clean. And then we have what we call the river section chief. So each section has one particular leader to make sure this section is with clear water, no dumping, no garbage, whatever, all kinds of environmental polluting factories removed or whatever. And then so that the whole Yangtze River passing here become clean. No excuse, you have your responsibility. And this is something across provincial borderlines. I just give you an example. Same with redundancy. Say this province has a particular, say, steel industry, but looking at this region as a whole, we don't need so many steel factories. So there is from top level down to see, we only need 2, just an example. So 1 must be abolished. This kind of coordination, it's not easy. And for instance, in order to make Taihu, Tai Lake clean, this integration and this whole arrangement has at least closed down around 10,000 factories, small, medium-sized factories. And then how to remove, how to help these workers to find new jobs, etc., in different parts of this region. So all these are the specific work that has to be carried out in the process of integration. It's ambitious, yet it's working very well. So we have you find all kinds of zones. This Yangtze River Delta zone, and then between Hong Kong, Guangzhou, Shenzhen. It's called Great Bay Area. It's also very dynamic, focusing on high tech and many other things. And then Beijing, Tianjin is also another zone of integration. And then in other parts of China. So you need to have what we call the, how to say in English, spatial planning from space. Yeah. For this particular region is endowed with resources for, say, petrochemical industries. That particular region is is stronger in high tech, and the other is in, I don't know, coal mine or the other. So you have to have this spatial planning in order to make the national economy tick. So this is very complicated. I always say if you want to study Chinese model, there are two major institutions you should go to or focus on. One is Bagaiwei, what's called the State Commission for Development and Reform. And this is state commission, but also each province has its local commission. Yeah. And this had to do with planning. And they have to go to the organizational department of Chinese Communist Party, which also have local branches, which are responsible for selection plus election. So if you know these two, you understand 50% of the Chinese model. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Zhang.
Yes.
Yeah, building Thai economic corridor. What can we learn from China?
China-Thai.
Yeah.
No, the point is, I'm not expert on China-Thai relations, but the Chinese idea, very straightforward. We want to build this whole railway from Kunming to Laos to Bangkok to Kuala Lumpur to Singapore to Indonesia. And this part of the BI initiative. And now Laotian Railway done. In Thailand, it's a bit slow. That's our concern. Because this from Bangkok to Laotian border, from my little knowledge, had been divided into two stages. The first stage started, I think, in 2017 or something. So many years passed. And it will be complete by year 2026. Yeah. But I appreciate, you know, Thai project could be go slow, and in the end result could be good. But ideally, if we can push a bit, because this line of communication, this line of railway means also the economic development. The whole economy along these lines will move up. This is how China does within China. We have a famous saying, you know, 要致富先修路. In order to get prosperous, you should first build roads and railways. Yeah. And when you it's like blood circulation, you know, circulated. And then it's called roads, infrastructure, roads, highways, bridges, and railways, flights, and also digital infrastructure. If all these are open and connected, it will be extremely good for Thailand and for this region. It's no longer the case of Thailand for Thailand. It's the whole region, ASEAN, and even bigger. It's from ASEAN to China, from China to Russia, from Russia to Germany, from Germany to France. This is what we call the Eurasian continent. Yeah, this should be your ambition. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Jiang. Another questions from the floor. With the size of China country and the size of population, how does China deals with corruption if we are to move to good governance?
Yeah. Corruption is a serious issue. For many years, you know, economic growth is also accompanied with the rise in corruption in China. And when Xi Jinping came to power in the year 2012, and he make this fighting corruption top of his agenda. And so far, it's doing well. Yeah. So for many years, despite China economic growth, some people said, we cannot handle the issue of corruption. When I debated with Professor Fukuyama, he said the same thing. He said, your system cannot cope with corruption. I said, don't say that, because we studied the history. Whenever there's economic growth, especially faster growth, usually corruption also grows. Why? Because the level of wealth generation, wealth creation, the pace of this generating wealth faster than the institutional framework to fight corruption. These two levels are different. One is the explosion of wealth. The other is explosion of wealth and corruption. And then the capability and institution for controlling corruption is not sufficient. So I said, if you compare what we call the four little dragons in Asia, South Korea, Taiwan, Singapore, and Chinese Hong Kong. South Korea and Taiwan adopted American approach, political system, one person, one vote, after their initial industrialization and modernization. And Singapore and Chinese Hong Kong more or less stay the same tradition, same approach, with a relatively strong government. In the end, which little dragon does better in fighting corruption? Of course, Hong Kong and Singapore, much better than Taiwan and South Korea. So I said, no historical evidence that your system fights corruption better than other systems. So basically, the experience of Hong Kong and Singapore is to build a relatively independent but powerful anti-corruption agency. So China does the same. We have in the party, we have the Zhongjiwei Central Disciplinary Commission. There is a telephone, smartphone number. You can have one stop, one button pressed. The information goes directly to the Central Disciplinary Commission, where it's a vote, say, an official through a banquet, which people think it's too lavish for his salary, or even wear a watch, which is viewed as too lavish for your income, whatever. Technically, you can report this to the Central Commission. So now it's very severe in fighting corruption. So corruption obviously declined sharply. Yeah.
Thank you, Professor Zhang. Let me just look up to check if there's questions from online. If any, please let me know for the team. The next question that I have on hand, what are the high risk factors over the next horizon of, say, 2 years? If I could be a bit more specific, especially for this audience, should we be concerned about the tension in around Taiwan? Should we be concerned with the potential conflict in the South China Sea and disruption to trade in the area?
The main concern is to what extent the United States will play with fire. And obviously, the United States is what we call poking the fire. They want to have another Ukrainian crisis in Asia Pacific. Due to the effort of China and ASEAN, fortunately, we did not repeat mistake of Europe. Europe has for long two traditions. One is to build European integration so that European countries with EU as a pole in international affairs to keep Europe's independence from the United States. That's one tradition. The other tradition is Europe become more and more, how should I put it, a servant for the United States, listen to the United States. Unfortunately, that option became increasingly true over the past 10 years. And NATO, many Europeans, I would say enlightened European intellectuals and politicians already realized Europe should not join in pushing this NATO expansion, 5 expansions until the crisis of Ukraine occurred. I told Europeans, in the case of Asia, at least China will not allow NATO expansion into Asia. It's a source of trouble and source of war. We are strongly against that. We adopt every ways and means to stop that. That's for the sake of Asia. And so when Europe lost its own strategic autonomy and independence, then it also lost its peace and its development and its idea of Europe. On the contrary, Asia, as represented by ASEAN and China, we have maintained our strategic autonomy, independence, say no to the superpower if necessary, don't pick sides, and focusing on cooperation, development, and peaceful settlement of disputes. So we have enjoyed about 4 to 5 decades of peace. This is by no means easy. Yeah? If you look at the European history, we have maintained 50 years of peace and development. It's by no means easy, but we have done that. I think this trend will continue because we see United States very clearly. It's almost like adult look at a boy, not yet grown up, not yet very sophisticated. And so what we have done is both China and most countries of and ASEAN members also see the value of maintaining this peace and development. So China has exercised maximum constraint vis-a-vis the Philippines. Yeah. If you look at the military power, we can handle the Philippine Navy within hours, and but we don't do that, because as I said, the key difference between China and the United States is for the United States, it's a friend or foe. For China, it's a friend or potential friend. So we have a much longer vision. Yes, the Philippines, from Chinese point of view, are making troubles on behalf of the American interests. Most probably, Marcos has something in the hands of the Washington, so he cannot, have a free will. He lost its independence. But, the Philippine politics goes ups and downs. Another leader came and another policy. So we have a longer view. Furthermore, with China's defense capability today, we're not afraid of US provocations, not to mention Filipino provocations. I told the Americans candidly, I said, my goodness, we still respect the United States as a superpower. In China, we say, we give you face, 给你面子. Yeah, but really, you want to fight a war, have military clash, tomorrow, you are no longer a superpower. Really, we tell you this candidly. There's no way to United States, there's no way for US to fight the war and win in Asia. No chance whatsoever.
Thank you. Let's talk a bit more in terms of the Chinese influence over other countries. In your opinion, which country has adopted or learned from the Chinese model quite successfully? And what do you think were the key factors for that?
Well, China takes a very open position. And yes, we have a model of development, but we do not export our model. We do not impose our model on others. Behind this is a Chinese culture. We do not have this evangelical urge to convert others. That's not our tradition. Our philosophy is, yes, we think we have done something right. If you want to learn from us, we can tell you how we did it. Yeah. If you don't want to learn from us, we don't care, you know. But sometimes, with the civilization behind you, you can see very clearly. As I told Fukuyama, Arab Spring, you should not support it. If you support it, good or bad, it becomes Arab Winter. It becomes hot potato. Yeah, endless troubles for United States, for Europe. It turned out to be true. The same with advice on BRI. I told my French colleague, I said, you should join BRI because one major issue, problem in Europe today is refugees from North Africa. You have to help Africa, as BRI has done, to develop. We're building airports, harbors, cities that creates jobs for local people. And why not? French company should join BRI. And if we have built airports, you can sell more Boeing, not Boeing. Boeing is corrupt. Sell Airbus. This kind of cooperation. Yeah. But I said we do not beg you. It's in your own interest. We just tell you in a sensible way. In fact, whether you join or not, we don't care. The same with the EV. The EU is going to levy heavy tax on Chinese EV vehicles. I said something goes wrong here. I said we don't care if we can sell in Europe. We help ASEAN countries, Africa, Middle East. There are huge demand for EV cars, including solar energy panels, including intelligent AI services and 5G clouds. All these are connected. And eventually, as the Indonesians, when they have this Chinese-built high-speed train from Bandung to, and they said, we declare to the world, now we have something the United States did not have, high-speed trains. And in Africa, go to South Africa, we have 5G made by Huawei, which Europeans do not have. This is a qualitatively different thing. It's a new thing. It's like a digital technology vis-a-vis Fuji and Kodak. If you miss that, you miss a lot. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Professor Zhang. Now that we're on topic of renewable energy as well, the floor has questions on your view over the next 5 years regarding sustainability with the carbon footprint regulations that's coming from many markets. What do you think where this clean environment is heading, and will the world effort together be able to achieve it?
No, it's amazing because I was involved in the Paris Agreement and the whole momentum to build up to the Paris Agreement on climate change. And we had the impression that Europeans are the most active advocates of green revolution, including renewable energies. All of a sudden, that became old memory. Whether it's European companies or the European government, it's no longer something top on the agenda. Why so? At that time, when the Europeans produced this all kinds of legal arrangement, they will punish those products which cannot meet European green standards. Now, China is the first country that meet that standards. So China did much better than European Americans in the green technologies. As a result, all of a sudden, in the past, some Europeans, some Americans believed that they could monopolize this technology and these standards, and then they can collect, tax from poor countries. India, China has outperformed them, and because China is the only country that make all this into 5-year plans. We're deadly serious. If you cannot do a good job in this, you will be removed from your position. So we excelled in that. And when you have an edge over Europeans, Americans, they become protectionist. That's the problem. Yeah. But again, we consider this is new technologies. It represents next generation of renewable energy. If Europe, United States decide not to join in, you will see the results. You will be left behind. Indeed, other countries outside Europe, outside United States will embrace that.
Thank you, Professor Zhang. Our time is up. I'm just looking at the floor in case there's any urgent questions that you'd like to address. If not, thank you so much, Professor Zhang, for
Thank you.
questions and answers.